at their very first Iowa Democratic Fall Gala back in the early 1800s. The tradition is called Pass the Hat. Now, as I heard it from Ed Campbell, who heard it from Neil Smith, who heard it from Guy Gillette, who I think heard it from Lewis and Clark, Thomas Jefferson came to the very first Fall Gala wearing one of those tri-cornered Patriot hats he had purchased at Filene's in Boston. As we all know, Andrew Jackson was a bit more rough-hewn. He wore a coonskin cap made of roadkill that he had encountered just this side of Oskaloosa. Despite their different backgrounds, however, at the first Fall Gala, both Tom and Drew tossed their proverbial hats in the ring, part of a joint effort to fund our great party. So when we pass the hat tonight, we connect with this rich party tradition. Of even greater importance, however, when we pass the hat, we connect with one another. We're stronger when united. We're stronger when we join forces. Dare I say it, we're stronger together. For when we pass the hat, we also pass the peace. For those under the age of 40, that's something old people do on Sunday morning in church. It's a gesture of human outreach, of physical person-to-person reminder of our connectedness. You see, in a small but significant way, passing the hat moves us off our foolish self-centeredness into a greater sense of community. If only I had a good, clear-cut example of self-centeredness, of narcissism, when focus on self is taken to an illogical extreme. But alas, try as I might, I just can't think of an example. If you can, might I suggest you channel some of your disgust and place a few more dollars in the hat. Okay, Roy, deploy the troops. I'm thrilled to have such a large audience here this evening, but you have to say it also presents certain challenges. For example, do we literally have enough hats to pass? It may take several hundred, which of course reminds me of that childhood classic, The 500 Hats of Bartholomew Cubbins by Dr. Seuss. All of which caused me to search for a deeper meaning in this simple story. As you may recall, Bartholomew Cubbins enters the scene wearing a hat, but when he attempts to remove his headgear in a show of respect to the king, another hat magically appears on his noggin. Repeated efforts all meet with the same result, until we're eventually talking about 500 hats. The royal establishment obviously finds this rather troublesome. Bartholomew is threatened. If he doesn't lose his hat, he'll lose his head. Fear not, however, the story has a happy ending. The ruler, King Derwin, buys the 500th hat with a bag of gold, and everyone lives happily past the ending of the story. Now, for the first time ever in such a setting, I will attempt to interpret this parable. You see, Bartholomew Cubbins is actually the Iowa Democratic Party, and King Derwin represents, well, he represents the current shortcomings in the executive branch at both state and federal levels. Here are the traits that describe Bartholomew: cheerful, helpful, polite, and a model of good sense and optimism. One reviewer noted he's the child with a heart of gold, whose social status does not reflect his inner awesomeness. That's our party. Now, as for King Derwin, according to one analyst, King Derwin represents themes of vanity and punishment. Quoting directly, King Derwin is not too bright a fellow. Derwin is a fool with authority. Authority not based on merit, intelligence, accomplishments, or anything like that. King Derwin is a warning that all authority figures aren't wise or just, and they certainly don't have your best interests at heart. Sound like anyone we know? My final point. Many of Dr. Seuss's characters, including Bartholomew, are rather ordinary. They represent the average person, just like our party. In this story, Dr. Seuss reminds us that ordinary people can and do extraordinary things. By passing the hat this evening, we seek an exceptional result by undertaking a rather ordinary task. So when the hat comes your way, don't just pass it along. Please be kind. Do something exceptional that helps our party do something truly extraordinary. Thank you from a full and happy heart.
Thank you all for digging deep. I know the buckets are still being collected, but thank you all so much, and thank you all so much for your support tonight. You know, tonight's dinner is one of our most successful ever. In the last 10 years, only 2 dinners, the caucus events in 2007 and 15, have surpassed the attendance that we have here tonight. So thank you so much for helping to make this dinner a success and providing us the resources that we will be using to fund our campaigns in 2018. I'm very fortunate to get to work with so many great and talented staffers at the Iowa Democratic Party, and they, along with our volunteers here, have worked hard to make this event possible. Please join me in thanking them for all their work. Also, I ask that you please join with me in thanking the employees here at the Event Center who worked so hard to make tonight a success. And finally, while I know most of you came here to see me this evening, I assume a few of you are here to see our keynote speaker. All of us know who Alec Baldwin is. We know him from his movies. We know him from his acclaimed TV series like 30 Rock. We know him from his outstanding podcast, Here's the Thing with Alec Baldwin. And we know him from his Emmy-winning appearances on Saturday Night Live, where he has come to define parody in the age of Trump. But Alec Baldwin is also an accomplished Democratic and progressive activist. He has campaigned for numerous Democratic candidates, including Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Ted Kennedy, and most recently for Ralph Northam in his successful run for governor in Virginia. And he is a board member for the progressive advocacy group People for the American Way and an advocate for animal rights. And through the Alec Baldwin Foundation, he has supported many causes, such as reducing homelessness, eliminating breast cancer, and research for cures to AIDS and breast cancer. He has always believed that our country can and must do more. And the other day, I picked up his memoir, and I didn't have to go far to find this quote from him. I dreamed of doing some kind of work that would make a difference in the lives of the people I cared about. I love my country. My way of loving it meant urging it towards being better. Through Alec Baldwin's work, whether on stage or off, we see that commitment to making our country better every day. And we are so glad to have him here tonight. So please join me in welcoming the chairman of the Abnormal Psychology Department at Trump University, Mr. Alec Baldwin.
All right, good evening, everyone. Please settle down. Please settle down, take your seats. Please find your desks and take your seats. I am Professor Alec Baldwin, and I occupy the Robert L. Mercer Chair of Advanced Trumpology and Abnormal Psychology. First, congratulations, you've all passed the 2 stringent requirements for matriculation at Trump University. 1, your checks have been made out to Donald Trump personally, and 2, those checks have cleared. This is one of the first courses offered in our brand new political science fiction section listed in the fall 2017 catalog. I hope you've all completed your assigned readings over the summer. We asked you to read The Art of the Deal, the biographies of show business legends Chuck Woolery and Danny Bonaducci, as well as an abridged version of the United States Constitution that doesn't include the First, 14th, or 25th Amendments. Before we begin, I have some announcements about the course catalog. Professor Flynn will be taking a sabbatical this year. In his place, we have Paul Manafort, who will be teaching con law Con is not an abbreviation for anything. Professor Pence just posted his office hours schedule. You're free to drop by for a one-on-one conversation with Professor Pence whenever you'd like, unless you're gay or a woman, in which case Professor Pence is unavailable until the end of time. Secretary of Energy Rick Perry is a last-minute fill-in for a class he's acknowledged he's unqualified for. It's called U.S. Energy Policy. EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt will be teaching a course on global warming called The Science of the Scriptures. Subtitled, He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, and He Has Very Warm Hands. Attorney General Jeff Sessions will be teaching a class. He just can't remember which one. Now, special note. We have a special note. It's the Attorney General's birthday on Christmas Eve. We'll be serving a vanilla cake with a bedsheet white frosting and little torches on top. So come on by for an impromptu celebration that includes Secretary Tillerson's popular magic show, Make the State Department Disappear. A special note, Judge Roy Moore's class, Hair and Makeup Tips for Teens, will not be held in a private conference room at the local mall, but is moved to room F9. Congressman Joe Barton asks that you turn in your phones before he himself poses for his drawing class, The Eternal Human Form. Today's lecture is entitled, What I Learned While Trying to Get Inside Donald Trump's Head. I have studied Donald Trump for longer than anyone should be required to. And if you think it's disturbing to look at that head from the outside, that head, like Mr. Potter from It's a Wonderful Life with a funnel cake wrapped around him. Thank you. I invite you to try looking inside. As we've all come to learn, it's so dark, so scary. The process has affected me so deeply, it has actually rewired my brain. Now the essence of Trump comes exploding out of me at random times without warning. If I'm out to dinner and want to make sure my wife has her dairy-free salad, I find myself turning to the waiter and saying, she'll have the kale salad, no cheese. Absolutely no cheese. No croutons. Hold the pecorino. If you're going to sign for me, get the hands up there too, if you can, okay? When I'm tired, impatient, cranky, out he comes. It's a disturbing and pervasive force in my life. When this is over, I'd like to donate my brain to science, if we still have science. Decades of insecurity and pettiness, bullying, and emotional constipation have manifested themselves into certain unusual physical traits. Consider the way Trump speaks, the flailing, drunk on ice skates style of public address. Trump is a man who is always looking for a better, stronger word and never finding it. His brain is like some enormous, dusty, Rube Goldberg-esque warehouse where a beleaguered man in overalls awaits his cue. Trump speaks. I just want to say that these first responders are the man in uniform springs into action. An older, out-of-shape man with short legs. He runs up and down the aisles, sifting through bins, digging for a word Trump has not employed in a while. He turns back to home base, the neurotransmitter to the tongue, huffing and puffing and dejectedly holding two cards in his hand. One says fantastic, the other says great. These people are fantastic. They are fantastic people, and I just want to say what a fantastic experience it was working with these fantastic people. Trump's brain, a world without synonyms. Then there's his walk. Wait. Then there's his walk. There's that walk, a walk that clearly reminds us of those debilitating heel spurs that kept him from serving his country. Let's consider for the briefest moment his mouth. Like the monster in Alien, Trump's mouth seems to be poised at any moment to do something violent, to bite something, to scream, to attack. It's flexed and straining, as if he's trying to suck the windshield out of a car. Lastly, let's look into the darkest place of all, Trump's mind, the place where he does his actual thinking. There is a system at work here. It runs on a simple code that says, you make me look good, you're a genius. But if you betray me, embarrass me, or tell the truth about me, you're a loser, a liar. It's sad. A fundamental yin and yang. If I say there were 3 million people at my inauguration, why would I make that up? Why would I inflate my net worth? It's like a child lying about their late homework assignment, or the broken window, or the dent in the car. If I say Time magazine offered me the Person of the Year cover and then Time execs deny it, they're pathetic, fake, stupid. That is all for our class today. You're all one step closer to your degree in Trumpology. Your homework for this evening is to go home and stand in front of a mirror for 40 minutes and practice making your face look like this. Now, unfortunately, our beloved university's namesake could not be here in person to welcome you all, but in any case, President Trump asked that in his place, I read this letter, and I'll do my best to convey his words just as he wrote them. Greetings, Iowa. What a great state, Iowa. I won Iowa. I won the state by 50 points. Would have been 100 points, but crooked Hillary and the DNC busted millions of voters from out of state, from cities like Cedar Rapids and Des Moines, but that's okay. Many people don't know that this day used to be called Jefferson Jackson Day, and there was a dinner. Jefferson Jackson was a great man. People are hearing more and more about him these days. And you know what we're going to go back to saying? We're going to go back to saying, Merry Jefferson Jackson Day. I can promise you that. By the way, Jefferson Jackson's brother, Michael Jackson, never touched those kids. And even if he did, we need him in the United States Senate nonetheless. But what a crowd at this dinner, can you believe it? Many people are saying that this is the biggest crowd that has ever come to this dinner. It's all because of me, Donald J. Trump. If I were there, though, I would say that there's a lot we need to fix in Iowa. Very cold there, a lot like Russia. Not that I would know that. Also, I want to say something to all the ethanol miners out there, the best people. We're going to start putting ethanol in everything, and soon sneakers, diet drinks, breast implants, all the growth industries. It's about jobs, your jobs coming back. That I can promise you. By the way, I want to apologize for comparing Senator Warren to Pocahontas. I'm sorry if I offended anyone, especially Pocahontas, who is, of course, a smoking hot cartoon character, so hot. And Senator Warren, of course, looks like Peppermint Patty from the Peanuts cartoons. It's so annoying. So where was I? Oh, right. The point is, I want to make Iowa great again. So I'm going to clock block. Is that a word? Clock block? Thank you. That pathetic Alec Baldwin, the host of your dinner, Alec Baldwin. Geesh. He's just a loud, obnoxious, no-talent TV star from, like, the Ukraine of Long Island. Just sad. Let me guess, he's going to come out and do an impression of Donald Trump, which, by the way, is not very funny and very bad. He's going to be mean to Donald Trump, when I've always been very nice and very fair to Alec Baldwin. You should have invited his brother instead. At least his little brother is not a man who was only famous because he wishes he were me. Everyone knows Stephen Baldwin is the best Baldwin. And when I finally get around to firing Rex Tillerson, who knows Secretary of State Stephen Baldwin, that'll get Little Rocket Man's attention. Enjoy your dinner, Electoral College losers. Thank you, your favorite president, Donald J. Trump. I want to thank Troy Price for the invitation to be here tonight. Thank you, Troy. It's good to see you, Treasurer Mike Fitzgerald, Attorney General Tom Miller, Senator Janet Peterson, Representative Mark Smith, and, of course, former Governor and Agricultural Secretary Tom Vilsack and his wife, Christy. Thank you for coming. And most of all, I'm so happy to see all of you here. I'm happy to have the chance to talk about this party that we care about, to talk about this country that we all love and how that country is in trouble, deep trouble, and how we must do everything in our power to save it. My dad was a public school teacher on Long Island, a poor kid. A poor kid from Brooklyn who grew to become a classic Kennedy Democrat, the heirs apparent to Roosevelt's legacy and the belief that the party represented the greatest hope for the prosperity and security of the greatest number of Americans. Eventually, I became a carry-me-out-in-a-box Democrat myself. I canvassed for Carter in 1976, going door to door in Maryland and Virginia during my freshman year of college. Carter again in 1980, Mondale in 84. I attended the convention in Atlanta in 88, 2 terms of Clinton, during which I hosted an event at my home for the president and then Senator Clinton. In 1994, I traveled all over Massachusetts with Michael Kennedy, RFK's son, organizing for Teddy Kennedy. It was me and Michael in a small rental car, a case of Snapple, and a bag of pretzels. We made 70 stops over 16 days, colleges, Rotary clubs, you name it, we were there. Ted won a tough race against Mitt Romney, and I'd like to believe that we made a difference. In 2000, I traveled to Florida. Thank you. In 2000, I traveled to Florida for People for the American Way's voter registration drive, only to end up agonizing over hanging chads and the Supreme Court decision that installed Bush in office for 8 disastrous years. When Obama won in 2008, I sat in my kitchen and wept. I marveled at how this country seemed so firmly on a course toward real reform and a progressive future. When Obama won his re-election, I decided to take a break from elective politics and focused my foundation's work on supporting the arts, supporting arts organizations. I rationalized that our guy would cruise through a courageous and fruitful second term, and that his Secretary of State would succeed him. A few years ago, I was invited to a Hillary fundraiser, and I wrote a check so small I worried they might grab the hors d'oeuvres right out of my hand. But then when the results came in last fall, I was in shock. We all were. As months have gone by, I've come to realize that Russian hacking may have contributed to our great loss. An anemic campaign from Clinton herself may have been a factor. The Mercers and the Kochs and all the other crypto-fascists of this country behind the GOP surely helped. But ultimately, I only have myself to blame, just like all my fellow Democrats have only themselves to blame. While Obama was in office, Democrats lost more than 900 seats in state legislatures across the country. We just didn't work hard enough. When we talk about the future of our party, I say it's not enough to slap a new label on our brand that says new and improved. We've got to back it up. This radical idea was brought into stark relief a few weeks ago by my friends at SNL, making the point as only they could. Let's have a look.
And now a message from the Democratic National Committee.
This Tuesday, Americans went to the polls.
And they told President Trump, "We don't like what you're doing at all, sir."
And now one thing is clear. We're back, baby.
The Dems are back.
Estamos de vuelta.
You love us again.
And we haven't felt this confident since the day before Trump won.
You love our fresh new ideas delivered by fresh new faces like me, Nancy Pelosi.
And me, Dianne Feinstein.
And me, Chuck Schumer.
Y yo soy Tim Kaine.
And I'm team player Donna Brazile.
And we also have some great new leaders waiting in the wings, like hot young thing Elizabeth Warren. And also, that's right,
it's Biden time.
And I'm still around too.
And together, we're going to end the spirit of divisiveness in this country by focusing on how we won the governor's races in 2 of the 10 states we care about.
Hey, maybe it's funny because it's true. We've got to revitalize our farm teams, strengthen our AAA ball teams, and fortify our position in the state houses across this country. 10 years ago, future President Barack Obama spoke at this dinner, the skinny young man with the big ears who moved quickly from the state legislature in Illinois to the U.S. Senate and on to the White House. And maybe, just maybe, a future Democratic president is somewhere in this room tonight. Let's have a round of applause for that idea. One of you. But wherever our next presidential candidate comes from, we've got crucial work to do right now for 2018. We've got party building to do on a scale that perhaps we've never known. At a fundraiser in New York a couple weeks ago, I asked a wise man, a great party elder, for some advice as to what I might convey to you all here tonight. And here's what he said to me. He said, Alec, you tell those folks in Iowa that we've got to get people to stop believing that impeaching this guy's the answer. We need to get back on our message. We need to keep reminding people that what we have to offer is better for the American people than what they have to offer. We need to tell them what we stand for. Can you guess who that was? Bill Clinton. Just to clarify for anybody here, if I wasn't too good on that one. That's what he told me. Don't hinge your hopes on the impeachment of Trump. We've got work to do. Let's talk about Iowa. Where's Marita Jacobs? Stand up, Marita. Where are you, Marita? Is she here? Where? Over here? Stand up. I understand that when this dinner was announced, Marita immediately got in her car and headed to party headquarters to be the first to get tickets. Let's have a round of applause for her. I love that. I love that level of excitement. And I want to see that enthusiasm for more than one night. We need that passion and commitment every day, straight through the midterms and on to 2020. We need to be there for Nate Bolton, Kathy Glosson, Fred Hubble, Andy McGuire, John Niederbach, John Norris, and Ross Wilburn, running to take back Terrace Hill. And when one of them, maybe not the one, I want to really stress this, and when one of them, maybe not the one you want, wins the primary, I want you to take the pledge right now and promise to come together and back that candidate on behalf of the Democratic Party. We need to be there for your candidates for Congress. And there are a lot of them. Let's hear it for Abby Finkenauer, Thomas Heckroth, George Ramsey, Courtney Rowe, Sidney Axney, Pete D'Alessandro, Austrian Frierick, Teresa Greenfield, Paul Knupp, Ed Morrow, Heather Ryan, Leanne Jacobson, John Passion, and J.D. Schulten. Let's hear it. We need to be there for Jim Maurer and Deirdre DeGeer for Secretary of State, for Rob Sand for Auditor, and to re-elect Mike Fitzgerald and Tom Miller, the longest-serving state treasurer and attorney general in U.S. history. Throw. You can sit down now. Look, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton were not just two competing candidates. They represented two competing ideas about who our party's nominee and our next president ought to be and should have been. That's why we have primaries. But both were infinitely more fit for office than Donald Trump. In recent years, Democratic voters have taken to picking up their ball and going home if they don't get their way. In the primaries, meanwhile, the Republicans stuck together and elected George W. twice, and then against all odds stuck us with Donald Trump as president. I still choke down those words every day. President Trump. If you truly believe you are a Democrat, you must come together with us right now and recognize that what unites us is so much more than what divides us. Being a Democrat means that you get very dry when you yak like this. Being a Democrat means recognizing that billionaires with their super PACs aren't protecting their free speech, they're silencing yours. As you and I both know, here in Iowa, the Kochs backed 21 candidates for the State House and 9 for the Senate. The only states where they invested in more candidates were Oklahoma and Texas. Take the Koch money out of Iowa, and you've got a different state. Take the people like the Kochs. Take the people like the Kochs out of our elections, and you've got a different country. They may have billions of dollars, but last I checked, they still only have 2 votes. We can beat them. Being a Democrat means recognizing that energy policy is the linchpin of our foreign policy. Why in God's name are we sending billions of dollars and thousands of young men and women overseas, sometimes to die, when we can meet all of our own needs here at home? Being a Democrat means recognizing that there are problems on a national level and here in Iowa as well that need fixing today, like health care. More than 70 times, Republicans have tried to repeal the ACA, even though it's working. So instead of repealing it, now they're undercutting it. You're seeing that here in Iowa. I'm told 1/4 of currently insured Iowans are going to lose their coverage, and as a result, people may die. And why? Because it's something Barack Obama achieved and therefore must be bad? That's ridiculous, it's offensive, and it's inhumane. You and I both know that being a Democrat means keeping our eye on the long-term future of this country, not only what will stimulate the Dow for the coming quarter. When you take money away from schools, you're putting the future of the state and the country at risk. And we are watching Republicans here in Iowa keep public schools on a starvation diet and cutting money from public universities. My dad was proud of his job as a teacher, and now that the new Republican tax plan will no longer allow our teachers to deduct the cost of school supplies, we need to protect teachers now more than ever in Iowa. And I think this is very important. While we never want to demonize success itself as the reward for hard work, we do not want to reflexively vilify those who make a lot of money. We do want to call out those who believe that money distorts their rights and privileges in our society and their place in our electoral process. Billionaires can write off their corporate jets, but teachers can't write off their school supplies. That's the Republican America. And that's got to change. And they've got to go. Let's pack them into those jets and send them to whatever country they're offshoring all their money in right now. I like that. And you and I can stay here and work for clean air and water, infrastructure investment, an equitable tax code, net neutrality, and so much more. Democrats are builders and Republicans are destroyers. Democrats have ideas to solve real problems while Republicans have corporate donors to pay them to say no. Democrats want policies that help the greatest number of Americans while Republicans favor the interests of the 1%. Democrats were once the champions of the working class, and we will be again. All we need to do is reach out to every corner of Iowa and every state in this country and remind them of who we are. The party of FDR, the party of JFK, of Clinton and Obama, and the party that truly cares about freedom and respect and opportunity for all Americans, men and women, old and young, rich and poor, every race, every faith, L and G and B and T and Q. This country is counting on us. This country is counting on the Democratic Party to lead. We cannot let them down. Already some of that hard work is paying off. Look at what just happened in a special election for a state Senate seat in a part of Oklahoma that Donald Trump won by 40 points. The Democrat won by 31 votes. Look at just what happened in Virginia in their state house. 15 pickups and counting. The last time Democrats picked up more than 5 seats in Virginia was 1975. This year, you're going to have a candidate in every state house and Senate race. Think of what a 15-seat pickup would mean here in Iowa. You know what? I'll settle for 10 in the House and 6 in the Senate. Think of what it would mean to say goodbye to Rod Blum, David Young, and Steve King from Paul Ryan's Band of Merry Men. We could elect some folks who actually want to work with Dave Loebsack to put Iowans first. Fellow Democrats, we're not going to wait for that to happen. We're going to make it happen. A Democrat is not something you are, it's something you do. If you don't drag 8 people to the polls, let me say that again, if you don't drag 8 people to the polls, you're not a real Democrat. If you don't put a sign on your lawn, you're not a Democrat. If you don't knock on doors, you make whatever contribution you can. Let's remind America that the Republicans would spend our last dime on deportations and deregulation, on walls and wars, on tax breaks that raise the deficit. And like everything Trump stands for, those things will divide our country. While coming together as a country shouldn't cost us a thing. Only Democrats like you can lead this country from partisanship to citizenship. I spent a lot of the past year playing Trump on Saturday Night Live, and I've had a lot of conflicting feelings about that. Some people love it and thank me for it. Others point out that Trump is, in a way, beyond the bounds of humor, and that by mocking him, we only normalize him. And with our treatment of Trump, perhaps we normalize things that should not be normalized, like the daily assaults on civility and decency, on women. We laugh at things that shouldn't be laughed at, like nuclear war with Korea or white supremacists in our streets. Are we so fatigued by this man that we tolerate things that otherwise we would never tolerate, like foreign powers effectively casting their vote for our next leader? And we forget things that should never be forgotten, like why we fought the Civil War, and that the First Amendment is first for a reason. We forget things like the lives lost in Las Vegas and Sutherland Springs, Texas, and the more than 550 mass shootings that have taken place in the past year and a half. For people around the world, America is a beacon that shines a light on how free men and women can live their best lives if they are willing to fight for it. Tonight, I'm making a promise to all of you. I am ready to fight. I'm going to make phone calls and knock on doors and do a hell of a lot more than I did last year to help the Democrats win. I'll be there for anyone. I'll be there for anyone who wants me to be there for them. And if you need me back, I'll fly back there for the Marita Jacobs steak fry. Pecan pie on me. I'll do whatever it takes to help Democrats, all Democrats, win, because it is my dream to never, ever have to inhabit the mind of Donald Trump again. I say let's send Trump to retire in Moscow where he belongs. We can win in 2018, we can win in 2020, but it's going to take each and every one of us to do that. We all have an important role to play, and that is to make America, America again. So let's get to work. Thank you, and good night, and God bless this country. God bless America. Thank you.
Let's give Alec Baldwin another hand for that great speech. Thank you, Alec. We are so honored that you chose to spend some time here in Iowa, and we hope you come back often. So we're at the end of the evening. I want to thank everyone once again for coming. I know folks got a lot of plans after this, but if you're free, all of you are invited to an after hours over at Peachtree Brewing, hosted by John Delaney. I want to once again thank everyone for being here. I hope everyone has a good night and gets home safely, because tomorrow the work